It is Wednesday, August 27th. We're going to talk about the phrase my clients resist to say the most and why I think it's one of the most important things we can say when we are tapping. Well, welcome to Wednesdays with Gene, presented by the Tapping Mastery Academy. I am the eponymous Gene Monterastelli, wherever you are in the world. If you're joining us live or you're checking in after the fact, thanks for spending a little time with me today. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to spend some time talking about and tapping for being gentle with ourselves and extending compassion towards ourselves and recognizing the fact that this is the one thing that of all of the things my clients resist the most to tap on, it's such a super valuable, it's such an important concept for us to get our minds wrapped around. And for me, when I define the word compassion in a very specific way, if I define the word gentle in a very specific way, it makes it significantly easier for me to engage in that particular way. As always, what we like to do is before we step into something like this, get ourselves disconnected from the craziness of the day, put ourselves in our body, and just be grounded to what we're doing right here. So, all I want you to do is for the next minute and a half, just do a little wordless tapping. Take a nice, easy, deep breath, and just move from tapping point to tapping point in the order and the rhythm that makes the most sense. As we are doing this, if some things come bubbling up, insights, informations, things you want to do, jot those down. Don't lose those. We always tap with some water, with some tissue, and a pen and paper nearby. And as a reminder, when if you're scanning your body, scan your whole body. I have a tendency to stop at my hips because that's where I'm bent as I'm seated. Nice big stretch, maybe even a big shake. Thanks for checking in, folks. We got folks in Honduras, in Oregon, and North Carolina. Feel free to say hi in the chat box or after the fact, drop a comment. I always love to see where people are checking in from as we navigate our way through this. So, before we jump in, just a couple of quick things. Let's take a quick look at the calendar. Starting a week from Monday on September, no, 7th, 10, 9, 8, 7, 10. 9, 8, 7. Sunday, September 7th. There we go. We're starting another version of the 30 Days of Tapping Mastery. This is one of my favorite programs to do. It is a way for us to engage. If you saw in your inbox, if you're on the mailing list, you got an announcement that went out about an hour ago about that. It is 30 days where we get a chance to look at the fundamentals of tapping and how you can implement them and integrate them. Like I said, it's one of my favorite programs. There is no Wednesdays with Gene next week because I will be in Australia, but we are back here in 2 weeks and we're going to be talking about creating emotional momentum. So put that on your calendar right now. 11 a.m. Wednesday, September 10th, we'll be live here again on YouTube. We always love it when you join us live. As John Hodgman likes to say, it is always better when you are here. Just some quick links for you to make it easier for you to get access to all of the stuff. Wednesdayswithgene.com. If you go to Wednesdayswithgene.com, you will see a playlist of the entire archive of every single one of these live streams. This is episode 34. We've been doing it almost every single week since December. So we're going to keep plugging along. You can find those there. Number two, if you'd like to join us in the Tapping Mastery Academy, tappingqna.com/TMA is where you get all of the information. And if you'd like to join us for the 30 days of Tapping Mastery, all you need to do is go to tappingqna.com/30DMT. So 30 days, Tapping Mastery is where you can find all of that information. We'd love for you to join us live there. Awesomeness. So let's talk about being gentle with ourselves. When I'm working with clients, we're tapping along. One of my favorite phrases is I give myself permission to be gentle with myself. I give myself permission to be compassionate with myself. I give myself permission to be easy with myself. And like I said at the top, of all of the phrases that I use, of all of the phrases that I ask my clients to say, this is the phrase that gets the most resistance. And the reason why this is a phrase that gets so much resistance is because what we think, particularly on a subconscious level, what is being implied when we say we are being easy and gentle with ourselves. So, what we hear on a subconscious level is when I say, I am being gentle with myself, I'm being compassionate with myself. What the subconscious mind hears is, I am giving myself a pass. What the subconscious mind hears is, I don't have to take responsibility for what is happening and what is in front of me. And I think it's good that there's a part of us that wants to take responsibility. I think it's great that there's a part of us that wants to be accountable for what has happened in the past. But the problem is that when we are doing that, when we are resisting being compassionate with ourselves, that sense of that I'm giving myself a pass isn't actually what we're doing. And many of us are carrying stories of those around us who said, you need to take responsibility, you need to live up to what is going on. And so when we give ourselves a pass, not only does it feel like we're not taking responsibility, but there also going to be a part of us that feels like we are rebelling against or letting down figures in our life who were trying to guide us and instruct us as we work through those particular things. And so for me, when I think of I'm being gentle with myself, when I'm being compassionate to myself, what I'm actually doing is I am choosing to recognize the context in which I took that particular action in. I am recognizing the context in which I was acting from. Hold on one second. My camera is getting a little wonky, so we're going to turn it off and turn it back on so it resets. There we go. That solves that problem. And it's really interesting. We actually in the Tapping Mastery Academy yesterday, in office hours, we were talking about taking responsibility and being kind to ourselves, being kind to others. And one of the things that one of my students rightly pointed out, which is a part of this, is that we are very, very, very good at giving the people in our lives permission to recognize the context. Oh, you were doing the best that you could. Oh, that was really, really hard. Oh, you didn't have all of the information. But what we don't do is we don't offer that exact same thing to ourselves. And so when I'm saying that I'm being gentle with myself, what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, when I made this choice in the past, which today I recognize was not a good choice or a choice I'm not happy with or a choice I'm not proud of, what I'm doing is I'm recognizing everything that was going on. Because when I look back, I am not just looking at the choice. I'm not just looking at the action. What I need to do is I also need to look at the context in which that action was being taken. Because oftentimes on the other side of things, I have significantly more information. And if I would have had the information back then I obviously would have made a different choice. If I had the information back then, I obviously would have acted differently. But as I judge myself from this current moment to that younger version of me, and that younger version of me could be a choice that I made yesterday afternoon, that's a younger version of me, is that What I'm doing is if I lose that context of me not knowing that, I am not judging myself kindly, and I am not judging myself justly, and I am not judging myself charitably because I'm ignoring that particular context. Because there are lots of times I would have made a different choice if I remembered to eat lunch. I would have made a better choice if I wasn't sick. I would have made a better choice if I wasn't running late. Now, as I do all of this, what I'm not doing is I'm not relinquishing my responsibility. That I can actually do two things simultaneously. I can take responsibility for the choices that I made. I can take responsibility for the consequences and outcome of those choices. And at the exact same time, I can be compassionate with myself and recognizing why I made that particular choice. They're not mutually exclusive. So, again, at the top, we talked about the resistance I have to being gentle with myself is a resistance to I'm not taking responsibility, I'm giving myself a pass. I can take responsibility and recognize the context in which I'm acting within. And that is going to make it difference. That is going to make it so it's possible for me to heal and move forward. Because if I'm not recognizing that context, if I'm not recognizing everything that was contextually happening, what my resource state, what information did I have? What were other people doing? What did I know? If if I'm not if I'm not acknowledging that, then I'm staying emotionally stuck back in the past because I'm beating myself up, or I'm ashamed, or I feel guilty, or I feel stupid. For me, when I am tapping for choices that I am not happy with today, for a choice that I made in the past, what's really important is I want to make sure that I'm staying present in this moment. And so, like, if we think of the difference between shame and guilt and regret, because I think that goes hand in hand in what we're doing here, because I can't be compassionate with my past self if I'm ashamed of what happened. So, shame is I am bad. Guilt is I did bad. Now, for me, when I am tapping for previous versions of myself and how I thought and how I felt and how I acted, either in a single moment or over a period of time, my goal is to move away from shame and guilt and move towards regret. And for me, regret is a healthy place to be. And so again, shame is I am bad, guilt is I did bad, regret is I made a choice that I am not happy with. I made a choice. If I had a chance to do it over again, I would make a different choice. And I am choosing to take responsibility for the consequence of that choice. And I'm choosing to emotionally be in this moment and not caught in the past. When I feel shame or when I feel guilt about a past choice, I am living in the past. I am not living in this moment. And so again, regret has this sense of me taking responsibility for what happened, me taking responsibility for the consequences. I regret making that choice. The consequence is, and I'm going to live with that particular consequence. And so regret still doesn't feel great. There are lots of things that I regret. There are lots of things, if I could go do them again differently, I would, because I don't want to create harm to others or myself in the world. And so when I'm being gentle with myself, when I'm being compassionate with myself, that's what I'm doing. I'm moving from shame and guilt into regret by recognizing the context in which I was acting within. Because the reality is, and this, like, it's going to be hard for you to hear this because there's some details to it, but we are always making the best possible choice we can based on the information we have and the resource state that we are in. I say that again. We are always making the best possible choice we can based on the information we have and the resource state that we are in. Now, both of those things can change very, very quickly. I can remember years ago when I was teaching anger management in the county jail in Baltimore, one of my students was talking about the idea of his anger and how angry he was when he pulled his fist back to punch. And as that fist was going through the air, all of a sudden he realized, ooh, if I hit this person, this could go really, really badly. And he was able to pull his punch and not make contact. So his resource state of protecting himself was here, and his resource state and information changed literally as his hand was coming forward. And so when we're recognizing that, we're recognizing in the moment of the choice. When I make a choice, I'm making a choice to keep myself safe or to protect myself or to protect someone I love or to move forward. And every single bad choice I have made in my life, I can go back and I can look, oh, that was motivated by moving forward or protection or safety. Now, it could have been misinformed. It could have been a dumb way of creating those particular things, but emotionally in that moment, that's the place I was operating from. And so we're trying to walk this very gentle line of not being stuck in the past, but not completely dismissing the past as if it has nothing to do with me. And so for me, it is reframing and re-understanding what I mean by being gentle with myself and being compassionate with myself. So much so when I'm doing it, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to talk about those ideas as I tap. So let's tap and I'll show you. Nice, easy, deep breath. And just move from tapping point to tapping point, repeating after me. I recognize the facts. There is a part of me that resists me being gentle with myself for this poor choice that I made. And I want you to think of a poor choice. Think of something that you're struggling with. And there's a part of me that doesn't want me to be gentle with myself. There's a part of me that doesn't want to be compassionate with myself. Because there's a part of me that's afraid that if I am gentle with myself, what I'm actually doing is giving myself a pass. What I'm actually doing is choosing not to take responsibility, is choosing not to take accountability. But I recognize the fact that when I'm being gentle with myself, what I'm actually saying is, I am willing to take full responsibility for my actions. I'm willing to take full responsibility for the outcome of those actions. But what I'm not doing is I'm not taking more responsibility than I need to. What I'm not doing is giving myself a pass. When I am gentle with myself, I'm giving myself permission to recognize the context that I made that action within. And I can recognize that context, be kind to myself, and still take responsibility. Nice, easy breath. Now, one thing that's really important for us to recognize, and I get a lot of pushback or not resistance for some of the phrases I use with my clients, is when we are tapping, the phrases that we are choosing are the phrases that are useful to the subconscious mind to the place that we are doing transformation. So there are times in which I am saying phrases out loud that intellectually I absolutely understand. So, for example, I understand what I mean when I say be gentle with myself. But even though I intellectually understand that, all of the resistances that we've been talking about that come from my subconscious mind are still coming up. So I'm going to go through the litany of saying, it is this, it is not that, because I'm not speaking to my conscious self, to the point that there are times in which I am saying phrases that intellectually I don't believe, but I'm saying phrases because I'm trying to engage my subconscious mind in the tapping process. So, when in doubt, when there is a resistance to being gentle with ourselves. So, if you go, I give myself permission to be gentle with myself, and you get all of that pushback and get all of that resistance, what that's a sign is that we just need to define what being gentle with myself actually means. Because as I tap on that, and maybe you felt that as we did it just a moment ago, as I tap on, I'm taking responsibility, but I'm recognizing the context. I could feel myself decompressing, but that decompression is not disengagement. It's not like, oh, it's not a big deal. But instead, what I'm doing is I'm putting myself in my body where I'm seeing things in a more three-dimensional way. One of the things that we do when we think about our past is we decontextualize it. We turn it into a single phrase, a single line, a single action. I did a dumb thing by. And that's an accurate description of what's going on, but it's a super, super, super incomplete description. And so it's important that we give all of that context. And next month, we're actually going to do a huge deep dive into all of that. So keep an eye out for that particular thing, because this idea of context is so important. But what we're doing here is we are not dismissing the past. We're seeing the past outside of that one statement, I did a dumb thing. But instead, I did a dumb thing because I was working from, because I was afraid of, because my resource was, because I didn't know. That's not me saying I did a smart thing. It's still saying I did something I'm not very proud of, or I'm not happy with, or was a bad choice. But instead, I'm giving myself permission to see it in that context. And again, think about all the times in your life you've helped someone to go, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Oh, you didn't know. Give yourself permission to extend that to yourself. So that is the reason why I find I give myself permission to be gentle with myself is the phrase that my clients push back on the most, but why that concept is so, so, so super useful. So as you're navigating your way through all of this, if you want to go back, go tap on this beautiful thing, even if you join us live, is you can go back and you can watch the replay of all of this. So that is what is going on with that particular thing. So just a couple of announcements before we scoot along on our way. As a reminder, 30 Days of Tapping Mastery is starting on September 7th. You got an email if you're on my mailing list already this morning, but as you go to tappingqna.com/30DTM. So it's 30 days tapping mastery. We would love for you to join us for that absolutely, absolutely amazing program. Quick reminder of our calendar. Nope, there's our calendar right there. That starts on the 7th. We're going to be back here on the 10th talking about creating emotional momentum so that when we're tapping, it's not just a standalone session, but it's something that we move from place to place along as we are doing all of that. So once again, we are not here next Wednesday as I'm going to be on the other side of the world and it'll be the middle of the night for me, but we are back here again on September 10th. You got questions, you got comments, you got anything that you need from us, just drop me a note at support@tappinqna.com. Thanks for hanging out with me here on your Wednesday morning or Wednesday afternoon, depending on where you're in the world, or if you're watching us after the fact. If you're watching the replay after the fact on the screen, you can see a link to the playlist of every single one of the past Wednesdays with Gene, or you can just go to WednesdaysWithGene.com for the entire archive. It's waiting there for you. I hope you have an awesome, awesome day, and I will see you back here in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.